Have you thought of a quick and dirty way to get a good cost of acquisition? Well, here we're about to take a look, so come join me. Let's check it out. Now, first up, as I get into this, we're going to talk some about cost of acquisition versus what we often hear, a cost of entry. So let's check out the numbers. All right, so we have kind of laid out just a little formula here we're going to go through. And again, this is just an idea to get a very quick and rough estimate of what total cost of entry can we expect if we're looking at a new lead that we've got. Now, this can be used for multiple types of opportunities. The one we're looking at today is a single family long-term rental. So that's what we're using. Okay, so we've got a rent per month. The property we're looking down in Pensacola right now, Pensacola, Florida, trying to build up some of our property and portfolio in that market. So right now, probably about mid-market is our $1,850 price point per month. If we try to get a little the upper end, maybe around the 75th or better percentile, we're probably getting about $2,000 per month. So one of the first things we want to account for is vacancy. So the way I've laid it out here is the occupancy rate. The reason I worded it that way is occupancy is something we use more for a variety of exit strategies. So maybe if you're not looking at long-term rental, maybe you're thinking about what would it be if I want to use the same formula to offer for short-term rental. Or maybe I want to do a co-living or pad split. I need to know what's my average occupancy going to be. So we use our occupancy in there. It is as a decimal. So we did a 5% vacancy. So we multiplied it by 0.95. All right, here's some of our other expenses. These are really going to vary a lot depending on what your exit strategy is. Short-term rental is going to be a lot higher. So we've got maintenance, which is kind of your general maintenance, capital expenditures for those big ticket items. You know, your air conditioning goes out. Maybe you've got to get a new roof. You know, some of those big ticket items, that's really our CapEx expenditures and property management fees. For now, I did 4% maintenance, 3% CapEx, and 8% property management. But again, that can change. It's long-term rental, a lot of times you're looking at a 10% property management. If it's short-term rental, you're probably looking more at anywhere from like a 17 to 25% property management. So knowing your exit strategy and what fees to incorporate here are going to be very important. You probably also need higher maintenance fees with some of the things like a short-term rental. They get beaten up a bit more. Anyway, so we've got our 4% for maintenance, 3% CapEx, 8% property management gives us another 15%. So I said 100 minus 15% is 85% divided by 100. So now we multiplied what we've already had earlier. We're just kind of going through here, multiplying these so far. So we had 1850 times 0.95 times 0.85. And so far this is the same on both of these, okay? The only thing that's changed is the rent minus our other expenses, our PITI, principal and interest for the mortgage payment itself, also our taxes and insurance. That's really the main things we have to worry about for the most part with the long-term rentals. Sometimes you might have an HOA. We need to account for that, especially with some of our other exit strategies. If you're doing a co-living model, short-term living, maybe a midterm rental, short-term rentals, any of those, you're probably paying for the electric, the trash pickup, the Wi-Fi or cable. You know, you're accounting for these other expenses. So we'll make sure we account for those expenses, the HOA, and especially with, I know short-term rentals, you often have an annual assessment of, they're doing other upgrades to the property. So make sure you have whatever that assessment is and just put that in, divide it out to a monthly expense. So right now we've got our PITI in here, 1450. And so then down here, what we did is we multiplied these out. We subtracted our 1450 expenses. And that one leaves $43.88 per month. So already we can see this one's tight, okay? We'll keep going across here for the top section. What is that? If we multiply it out for annually, our 12 times 12 months cash flow, it's $526.56. So $526 for the year. And here, what we want to start thinking about is our funding. So this is saying if maybe I wanted to have a private money partner, I want to make sure that they give them 6% of the 6% annual cash on cash return. And maybe I want to have a little 2% maybe for myself, or just have a little extra cushion built into the numbers. So I'm going to get 8% or 0.08. If we're doing a private money lender, well, they're not getting any of the ownership. They're not getting the equity in the deal, but they're going to take a higher percentage rate. So we're going to budget 12% for them. I still want to have a 2% cushion, and it gives us 14% overall. So let's back up real quick. Looking through the rent per month, if we went up to $2,000 a month, still have our 5% vacancy here, the same maintenance and CapEx and property management, minus the same PITI. Now we're getting $165 per month. So about, a little over triple the cash flow, nearly 4 times the cash flow of the first deal when the rent was at $1,850. So definitely, if we were going to make this work, we want to try to get that higher rent. Times our 12 months rent. So what's our annual cash flow? Just under $2,000, $1,980. And we're still going to have the same offerings here. The PMP 8%, PML 14%. That we still have that little bit of cushion built in. All right, so now what we do is we kind of take these first two numbers, so this number here, and I'm going to divide it by my cash on cash target, by my 0.08 for 8%. I'm going to do it again for 0.14 for a PML number, so that's 0.14 is 14%. And we're going to see what kind of total offer that gives. Now, before we go through this, I want to talk about a key difference here. The way I'm putting this, a total COA, cost of acquisition. Okay, so this is not just the cost of entry. So what is the cost of acquisition? It is our down payment, our closing cost, our TC, the assignments. If there's a wholesaler or an agent, that those assignments are paid. Okay, you can kind of see that little dividing line. That is where we normally would kind of see the end. We talk about a lot of cost of entry. That's COE, cost of entry. Usually just up to that point. Okay, we've got the down payment, the closing costs, TC, assignments, and if there's any arrears payments, if it's a house in foreclosure, all that's included in that cost of entry. But we're going a step further. We're also going to include, well, what about if we're adding in rehab costs? If we're adding in holding costs? Okay, because we want to be accounting for those things, especially if we're bringing in other private money. All right, so line number 1, if we look back up there, that was our $1,850 rent, which was, again, sort of average market rate for this property. What is that going to give us if we're using a private money partner? Well, that gives us a result of $6,582. So that means that basically we would need to be able to purchase the property, do any rehab, have a little holding cost in there, all for that price, if we're going to hit that target. If we're doing a private money lender, then it's $3,761. So both of these options, somebody is probably not going to want to sell their property for that unless they're in a really bad spot. Okay, if they're in a really tight spot, then they may just have to get that debt off of them. They have to reset, get rid of that debt, and you might be able to solve that issue for them. All right, if we were looking back for this, now options 3 and 4, this is the $2,000 rent per month. And then option 3, so again, the odd numbers down here, 1 and 3, this is looking at a private money partner, so we use that 0.8%. Sorry, not 0.8%, but 0.08, which is equal to 8%. If we did a private money lender, we took our annual cash flow divided by 0.14, we get $14,000. So we can see a big difference in the offering here, and a lot of that is because we're having to budget a lot more expenses for our private money lender because of the cost of that debt. Up here for the private money partner, our debt is not as expensive, but we've given up ownership. So we're not getting all of the equity, but the private money partner is getting that as sort of the trade-off here. You can see they're essentially trading $10,000 in that to get it. Want to go just one step further. Let's say, what if you had the cash sitting around? What if I if I've got the money in the bank, would I just buy it? And they said, well, I could offer more if I didn't have the debt. It's like, well, you're right. But also there is opportunity cost. So opportunity cost is probably about 4%, maybe a little more. But if you had your money just sitting in a high interest savings account, you're probably getting somewhere between 4 and 5%. Now, I might even say I could go for a purchase floor here. I put down to 3%. Reason I did that is because I understand there's multiple ways to take money and make money in real estate. So we still have our cash flow, but we also have the appreciation, the debt pay down, and also the depreciation that I may be able to claim against income, especially if you're a real estate professional. So here I put a purchase floor going back to the 1850 monthly income, annual income of 526.56 divided by now 3% or 0.03. That's where this number 17,552 comes from. And a purchase floor if we were getting the 2,000 monthly rent and 1980 for annual income. Well, then I could offer up to 66,000 if I was doing a 3% purchase floor. Now, I don't necessarily recommend using this number. That's essentially having no cash flow because it's just so tight. You're probably losing money on the opportunity cost. But if you're somebody just wanting the other appreciation, depreciation, this is an opportunity way and hopefully a quick way to get those numbers. Now, I know as I talk through it may not seem like a quick way, but you can get my calculator. Click the link in the description, fill it out, and I will get you that so you can run through this. By clicking the link in my description, you will have this calculator for free, and you'll be able to get these numbers very quickly and easily. You just plug in your numbers and make sure you use the percentages appropriate to your strategy for your rentals. And I wish you the best, and come follow me as we learn and grow together. So until next time, this is Big John. So let's go and let's grow.